Welcome to Tough Conversations with David Wood, where play meets depth. We help teams and high-performing leaders like you to master your tough conversations so you succeed in your career and in your life. When we avoid tough conversations, we stay small. Teams stay disengaged, conflicted, and ultimately end up quitting. When we lean in and master our tough conversations, they become the defining moments that literally shape our careers, our relationships, and our lives. So let's dive in and master your next tough conversation so you can be the leader that you would follow. Let's play.
It feels more than good. The reason I can donate 100% of the profits from my online work and coaching other people is because I've done it.
Wow. Welcome everybody to this episode of Tough Conversations, and we're doing something new today. We talk a lot on this podcast about tough conversations with other people. Today we're going to look at you having a tough conversation with yourself about your finances. And I'm looking forward to learning about this too. Firstly, welcome Rennie Gabriel.
Thank you, David.
I'm going to read your bio and then we'll get stuck into it. And I didn't even edit any of your bio because it's punchy, it's short and sweet, and I learned some interesting stuff about you. So here's who you'll be listening to today. Rennie is a TEDx speaker and the author of the award-winning best-selling book, Wealth on Any Income. After 2 divorces and a business failure, he was flat broke at the age of 50 and started all over from scratch. After learning what was not taught from all his financial education, he became a multi-millionaire in just a few years. Rennie's helped thousands of people avoid the financial downward spiral. I'd like to avoid that too. And now he donates 100% of his profits to charity. So Rennie, you and I came to each other through a mutual friend, Saida Desilets. And any listeners, if you're interested in igniting your erotic passion, then go and Google Saida, S-A-I-D-A, and ignite your erotic passion. I love her, and I'm curious, how do you know Saida?
We had met originally in a seminar put on by a gal named Laurel Langemeyer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so she teaches concepts similar to what I teach. So Laurel and I are aligned, and I've even coached some of her folks. But we met in that seminar probably about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And Laurel asked people to find an accountability buddy because I say wealth creation is a team sport, not a solo sport, because it's good to have someone you can be accountable to. And actually, the more people who are supporting your vision, the better. And so I connected with like 3-4 people as accountability buddies. And within 1 or 2 calls, everybody else fell away other than Saida. So I supported her, she supported me. We've been speaking at least monthly for like the last 5 to 6 years.
Wow. Well, I'm not surprised that she didn't fall away. She is a firecracker. And I love the concept of accountability buddies. I have one too, and I have a call today with him. We speak each week for 30 minutes. So either hiring a coach or having an accountability buddy or both, I totally support. Now, finances are a tough conversation for me. I
don't mean to laugh, David, but financial conversations are tough for 90% of the population. So
yeah,
you're not an exception. Go ahead.
Got it. So, one thing that's tough for me is the worry about like what's going to happen and will I have enough and will the business do well? And then I guess another tough conversation is probably, which I think we're probably going to get into, is like, am I taking care of my finances? What was your tough conversation around finances?
It was having to admit that what I learned as a certified financial planner, chartered life underwriter, was not preparing me to be financially prosperous. I was able to earn a living and help other people be prosperous, but it's not something you can turn around and use and look at yourself very easily on your own. So after a couple divorces and a business failure, like you said in the bio, at age 50, I'm flat broke. And I had to look at the situation and say, okay, generally people look to retirement at age 65. I don't even like that word, but we'll use it for this context. So I've got 15 years, and either I'm going to be eating cat food, or I've got to do something different because what I've been doing in the past is not working.
So you were and are a CFA.
No, my son happens to be a chartered financial analyst.
Okay.
I'm a certified financial planner.
Oh, CFP, and you were flat broke at age 50 despite being a CFP.
Yeah, wouldn't you say that's a little embarrassing?
Yeah. Yeah, I would, but also qualifies you now to speak about, hey, I had all this, a certain set of information from being a CFP, and it didn't have me be wealthy.
No.
So go ahead.
What is missing, and I found out, well, parents can't teach to their children what they don't know. Teachers can't teach what they've never learned. So it's not taught in school. Parents generally don't pass it on because they don't have it. And what's worse is that I started interviewing certain CPAs and found out they were not taught in their coursework how to do personal budgets or teach their clients how to do personal budgets. Now, I'm a certified financial planner, and I know that was missing from my coursework as well. Bottom line is the very foundation for handling money effectively is not taught anywhere except for maybe 10% of the population that might pick it up from their parents or some school elective program. It's frightening, and that's what I was coming to realize.
Wow. And what do you think, why do people avoid this tough conversation with themselves about finances?
Well, people think they're supposed to know this stuff, I guess, by osmosis, and they don't. And so it's easier to just avoid it than it is to face it head on. I've talked to so many people who have, who come to me because they're finally looking for the solutions, and they'll say, I haven't looked at what my credit card debt is because I'm afraid. And the fear keeps people from looking at it. And the strangest part is when they sit down and look at it, and it's the same thing for me, and you have it down on paper, you can actually create a plan to do something about it. Where if it's just spinning around in your head and you don't know what the balances are and you're not sure what your minimum payments add up to and all the rest, it's just like, I don't want to look at it because I'm afraid of what I'm going to see.
Yeah, I really relate to this. It's kind of easy to put my head in the sand. You've met, looking at the debt sounds like a tough conversation that we might want to avoid. I imagine also looking at your expenses.
Oh, absolutely right.
Looking through the credit card, seeing what you spend your money on might be like, oh, it's fine. Let's just ignore that. But the cost of not having that tough conversation, I imagine, is that some of your money could be draining away that could go towards your wealth accumulation.
Absolutely right. And here's I'll say the toughest thing to have to admit. And I very rarely talk about this, but in the process of having to deal with this, I went into a program called Debtors Anonymous. It's literally a 12-step program for people who need to face their money issues in the same way someone finally has to admit they're an alcoholic.
Right.
And this is where I learned, really learned the basic concepts of how much income is coming in, where are you spending it. You don't have to do this alone. In the same way, in AA, you have a sponsor, you have other people who support you, you have meetings. I had it for handling money, which was Debtors Anonymous.
Yeah. So that sounds like a great support structure to support you in having the conversation that you've been avoiding about your debt. I'm making a list here because I really like looking at like what are the elements of this tough conversation that we avoid? So one is looking at your debt and facing up to that. Another
Yeah.
one is looking at your expenses, seeing monthly, what do you spend money on? I imagine another tough conversation would be cutting those expenses.
Yeah, it's a situation of the expenses fall into three categories. There are the fixed things, which could be rent, it could be a car payment, it could be whatever. There are the variable expenses, which are like the gasoline in your car, or the utility bills, or the phone bill. You're going to have them every month, but they can vary every month. And the third are the discretionary. This is, meals out, or going to the movies, or cable
Amazon.
TV. Amazon, you bet.
That's my Achilles heel.
I get it. And so it's really best to not look at those things by yourself. So when I say it's a tough conversation to have with yourself, it's really so much easier when you're doing it with someone else who's non-judgmental. And that's the key.
Wow. I like that. Well, we started talking about accountability buddies, and there are quite a few things in my life, even though I'm independent and a self-starter, there's some things that are really hard for me to do alone.
Oh yeah.
And one of them is looking at finances and particularly my taxes. And if I just had someone else to even energetically shoulder the load and say, all right, well, let's just start here and do that, I think that would make it so much more even enjoyable for me to do it.
It does, because you're, like you said, you're sharing the load, and any load is lighter when you've got someone else to support it or support you with it. And there's a fabulous book that I read called Change Anything. And it was written by the same 5 authors who a few years earlier wrote a book called Influencer. And it's based on their studies. This is not just ideas, but based on empirical studies of how human behavior can be changed. And willpower has absolutely nothing to do with the process. It has everything to do with what they call 6 areas of support in terms of personal motivation and personal ability, or social motivation, social ability, and so on. And think of it this way. If you were in a rowboat and you want to get somewhere, and you sit on one side of that rowboat and you row in one direction, how far are you going to get?
Not very far.
Yeah, pretty much nowhere. You're going to just be going in circles. But if you've got 6 people in the boat and all 6 of you are rowing in the same direction, can you see how powerful that is in getting somewhere? And that's what this book, these 2 books both illustrate, is the power of changing any kind of behavior when you've got the support structure in place. Yes, you first have to have the conversation with yourself that's tough. Why do you want to make the change? What are your fears? What could happen if you don't, and stuff like that. And then you enroll people into supporting you. And you look around at who are your friends. Are they accomplices to your bad behavior? Or can they be supporters of the new you? And so anyway, these are crucial things to be looking at.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it. I'm a big fan of support structures. I did a landmark education course a long time ago called Communication Access to Power. And what I learned is that relying on willpower is not very reliable, because it might be there one day and it might not be there another day. But if you set up structures, support structures for yourself, like a vision board, or like getting accountability buddy, or like getting a CFP, or hiring a coach, if you have a structure, I say to my clients, if my phone doesn't go off with a reminder, it's not going to happen for me. So one of my structures, and the reason I showed up for this call, is I put a reminder in the phone. So I really like that. So I want to get a sense, like for listeners who are listening to this, one of the things that I teach for tough conversations is work out the upside. Like, why would I even want to have this tough conversation? And then work out the downside. What's the risk, which will tell me why I'm avoiding it. So let's do those perhaps in reverse order. The drawback of looking at my expenses and looking at my debt and creating a plan might be that I feel uncomfortable. It might be that I might get a sense of overwhelm. I'm just trying to get an idea of what might be going through someone's mind. I'm not going to be able to handle it, or I'm going to get bad news.
Yeah, now those are the reasons not to look at it, but I wouldn't say those are the risk. Here's the risk that I was facing at age 50. If I don't turn things around and get in some way out of the situation I've been in the past, then what I'm looking forward to, this is the risk, is a future where maybe I'm living in an apartment, maybe I lose my home, maybe I don't have enough money to go anywhere or do anything, maybe I'm not able to purchase proper groceries and I could be eating cat food. I mean, that kind of risk, that kind of fear is really what I was looking at, that transformed into the motivation of what do I need to do and how am I going to do it?
Okay, so that's the risk of not having this tough conversation with yourself.
Right.
And the downside of having the conversation, I think it's important to acknowledge, you might feel uncomfortable or awkward for a while. You might feel a little bit overwhelmed. You might need to go and get some help. So that's the downside. The upside, what's the upside? If someone does have these tough conversations and gets a handle on this, what's possible?
I'll tell you what's possible, but I also want to add embarrassment, because people feel they're supposed to know this and they don't. And can you imagine, with the financial education I had, not feeling competent?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the embarrassment is overwhelming. I'm a certified financial planner. You think I want to let anyone else know how bad I am with money?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So embarrassment's a big block. Okay. So what's the upside? Well, here was the upside. I put into place a concept that's 5,000 years old, and almost everyone I talk to has heard of it. It's called pay yourself first. Maybe they've heard of it and they're not putting it into practice. Maybe they've heard of it and said, I've tried that before, I've done that. Or, maybe they haven't heard of it, or maybe they misunderstand it and think, well, that means when I get paid, I go out and buy my groceries or pay my rent. That's not paying themselves first. Okay. So the upside is I started doing this and paying myself first for every dollar that was coming in. After 3 years, I saved up $18,000. Here I am, 53 years of age, and I now have, $18,000. But what I did is I started leveraging that with a couple of other people. We made a down payment on a little multi-unit property, 3 units. And in the United States, we've got some advantageous tax laws when you buy real estate, in that if it grows in value and you buy something else like it, if you sell one and you buy something like what you sold with income producing real estate, you don't have to pay the capital gains taxes. You can have the gain and you can transfer it all to the new property.
All right. So without getting too deeply into this, and we'll give people a link at the end, so if they want to go deeper into this, they can. I want to keep it at the meta level. What I'm hearing, tell me if I got this right. Number one, you have to pay yourself first so that you have some working capital.
Absolutely.
And then secondly, leverage that wisely, not dumbly, but leverage that so that your money can work for you and grow to be more money. Would that be right?
Exactly. Absolutely right. So the money ends up producing the income, so you don't have to work to produce the income.
That makes, it makes so much sense. And I think this should be taught in schools. I feel a little bit ripped off. Sorry, mom and dad, but I wished I'd been encouraged and taught to invest from an early age.
But please don't blame your parents. How can they teach what they've never learned?
Right. Understood. And I feel wistful and I wish. Wish. But as they say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Exactly.
So what I'm getting from this, as I hear you talk about leverage, I think about the Monopoly game,
Mm-hmm.
and also the rat race. I like rat race as a game. If in Monopoly, if you don't invest, if you don't buy houses and buy hotels, you will be wiped out.
Exactly. That's right.
That's how it goes. And I was lucky that about maybe 10 years ago, I was having a beer in Australia and I was just saying, oh, I wish I had the time or the interest to go and look at property. I'm just not interested, but I know it'd be really smart. If I did it, it would pay off over time. And a friend said, oh, I'll do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it for you. And I'll take a percentage of the increase in the valuation after I renovate it for you. I'm like,
See, that team sport.
yeah. I'm like, really? So she did it. She went and she found a place. I approved it because I didn't care and I didn't want to look at it. I bought it. She renovated it. And now we're like 10 years later and I own a property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's my nest egg. And I tell you, Rennie, if I hadn't done that, I don't think I'd have a nest egg. I might have 20 grand in a savings account, but I wouldn't have something to rely on. So I lucked into it. And for all our listeners who haven't lucked into it and they're not paying themselves first and then leveraging that to have their money work for them, I'm encouraging you to listen to Rennie, go and check out his website, which we're going to give you very soon, and start building a wealth plan for yourself, because I imagine, Rennie, that it feels good to know that you have a plan in place.
It feels more than good. The reason I can donate 100% of the profits from my online work and coaching other people is because I've done it.
Wow. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. That's something that stood out in the bio. 100%, like any profits that go from people working with you after this podcast, to clarify, that's going to go to charity?
That's correct.
Wow. And it's because your money is working for you. You paid yourself first. Then that money is like a bunch of different employees who are like just going to work, making some money for you.
It's funny the way you phrase that, because that's just how I look at it. I look at it as I've got, let's say, 30 families who go out to work every day. And once a month, they're sharing, let's say, a quarter of their income with me. And I don't even have to manage them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, this makes so much sense. And I did watch your TEDx talk. I encourage listeners to listen to that as well. Very simple, easy to follow information. Before we give out your website, I want to ask you, what kind of dog do you have?
Oh, I've got, we have 2 rescues. And that's, can I talk about the charity the money goes to?
Yeah, please.
Okay. It's called Shelter to Soldier. Dogs are rescued from high kill environments or off the street or a rescue organization, a pound. And if they meet the personality and size requirements, they're trained as service animals for soldiers who come back with post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injuries. And our soldiers who are allowing us in the United States to have lives that are secure and risking theirs in other parts of the world are not treated well. And when they come home and are committing suicide at the rate of almost 1 an hour. Not one service member who's gotten a service dog has committed suicide. Mm-hmm. So this organization is preventing dogs from being euthanized and soldiers from committing suicide. So they're saving 2 lives at a time. So my wife and I have always rescued dogs. And what we have now, one is a border collie pit bull mix. And the other is just some little fluffy thing that was hit by a car on the side of the road near the desert and dumped in the pound. Anyway, so that's what we have now, 2 dogs, but we've always had rescues.
Right. It seems to me you're feeling a touch emotional as you speak about it. Would that be right?
Yeah, I actually did pretty well. Sometimes I get choked up and can't even talk. So I did pretty good this time.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're helping people, not only helping people with wealth, but you're also rescuing animals and veterans. at the same time. My dog is a rescue and she's an emotional support animal.
Mm,
So I am now a big fan of what you're doing and you, and I can see now I'm getting more of a sense of why Saida said that we should talk.
yeah, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Saida.
Yes. So where can people find out more about you?
Easiest place is to check out the website, which has the same title as the book, Wealth on Any Income. And the reason it's called Wealth on Any Income is because when I started over at age 50, I was only earning $5,000 a month. I created a multi-million-dollar net worth by saving $500 a month.
Wow.
So that's why it's called Wealth on Any Income.
Wow. I'm writing that down. That's inspiring to me. It's like, I can save $500 a month. Fantastic. Rennie Gabriel, thanks so much. Really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much, David, for having me on. It's absolutely my pleasure.
You've been listening to Tough Conversations with David Wood. Now it's action time. Mastering your tough conversations will have a major impact on your team, your company, and you as a high-performing executive or entrepreneur. If you're ready, request a discovery session with me at playforreal.life so we can transform your team, your company, and you. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I would love you to help me spread this message of tough conversations in a very simple way. Just leave a public review at playforreal.life/podcast. And you may hear me read it out loud and thank you live on a future podcast. Now, let's play.